The Baltic Sea looks peaceful now, but if you stand on the dunes north of Liepaja at dawn, when mist clings low to the sand, the silence feels wrong. Too heavy, too expectant. Locals say the wind here carries voices. Historians say memory never left this place. And the truth is far darker than either explanation. Because in the summer of 1941, before the world understood the scale of what Nazi Germany was about to unleash, the killing began here. Quietly at first, then with terrifying speed. Einsatzgruppe A swept into Latvia behind the German invasion of the Soviet Union, their purpose already written before the first boots touched the ground: to hunt, to isolate, and to eliminate. Jews, communists, and anyone labeled enemy. There would be no trials, no appeals, only pits in the earth and gunfire swallowed by the sea. Liepāja was a prize, naval base, port city, and gateway to German ambitions on the Baltic. But to the men of the Einsatz commandos, it was something else. A target dense with undesirables, a place where the machinery of mass murder could run without interruption. Before the German army fully secured the city, shootings had already begun. In the nearby town of Grobina, 6 Jews were executed beside a church graveyard on the first night of the invasion, an omen of what Liepāja would soon become. The terror didn't wait. It rarely does. By the end of June, Liepāja had fallen. German troops marched through its streets, but it was the Einsatz commandos who seized the soul of the city. They took over Hotel St. Petersburg, once a place of guests, now a headquarters of death. From its windows came orders they would doom thousands. In Rainis Park, trenches dug by retreating Soviet soldiers waited like open wounds. The Germans saw opportunity in the earth. On July 3rd and 4th, hundreds of Jews were forced from their homes, driven through streets filled with onlookers who understood exactly what was happening and understood that silence was safer. One by one, families were pushed to the edge of those Soviet trenches. Gunshots echoed through the city center. Bodies fell, layer upon layer, until the pits could hold no more. The killings were no longer random. They were scheduled. Regulations followed swiftly, because murder was not enough. Humiliation had to precede it. Jews were ordered to wear yellow stars on their fronts and backs. Shops marked Jewish-owned business became warnings rather than advertisements. Radios and typewriters were seized. Even walking on the beach became forbidden. A city once known for sea breezes and open promenades hardened into a cage. But the men in charge wanted more speed, more efficiency. Erhard Graul, then Franz Stahlecker, then Wolfgang Kogler, each pushing the death toll higher. And when local collaborators from the Araj Commando arrived, the killings accelerated into something close to industrial. In just 2 days, nearly 900 Jews were murdered. The sand and soil of Liepāja absorbed it all. By December 1941, Liepāja was no longer a city. It was a staging ground, an engine of death that needed only a command to roar into motion. That command came quietly. On December 13th, a brief notice appeared in the local newspaper. Just a few lines of print, easy to overlook. All Jews must remain in their homes for the next 2 days. No explanation, no justification. But everyone understood. Notices like this were never about order. They were preludes, signals that something catastrophic was about to happen. That night, Latvian police, acting under German authority, flooded the streets. Doors were pounded open, families ripped from beds. Some were given minutes to gather coats. Others left behind everything they owned. The courtyard of the women's prison swelled until it overflowed with terrified faces. Children clutching parents, elderly pushed forward with rifle butts, nurses and clerks and shopkeepers who had once been neighbors, now reduced to a single category: enemy. From the prison, they were herded into trucks and marched north toward the dunes of Skede. A trench waited there, 100 meters long, dug days earlier, its purpose unmistakable. As dawn broke on December 15th, the operation began. Victims were forced into a barn, ordered to undress, stripped not only of clothing, but dignity. Hesitation meant beatings. Defiance meant bullets. German SS officers barked commands. Latvian guards wielded clubs and whips. The wind carried their cries across the frozen beach. And then, step by step, they were driven toward the pit. Some tried to pray. Some whispered their children's names. Others were too numb, too cold, too starved to do anything but walk. The guards forced them to stand at the edge, facing the sea, their backs to the rifles. The Baltic wind cut through their skin, but the bullets came faster. After each volley, a German officer walked along the trench with mechanical calm, firing finishing shots into anyone who still moved. Behind him followed a man whose task was even more grotesque: to push bodies into the pit, to clear space for the next group. Witnesses later remembered him simply as the kicker. The massacre continued for 3 days. By the night of December 17th, 2,731 Jews and 23 communists had been executed at Šķēde. Entire families vanished into the sand. Some victims recognized neighbors among the Latvian auxiliaries who guarded them. Others saw German officers taking photographs, evidence of their own atrocity, captured with chilling detachment. Those images, preserved by a Jewish electrician named David Zivcon, would one day become some of the only surviving film and photographic proof of Einsatzgruppe mass shootings. But for the survivors still trapped in Liepāja, the nightmare was not over. By June 1942, the Jewish population of the city, once nearly 6,000, had been reduced to just over 800. The remaining men and women were forced into a tiny ghetto of 11 houses, where starvation, disease, and brutal labor replaced the bullets. In October 1943, on Yom Kippur, even this last remnant was taken, rounded up and deported to Riga. Only a handful survived the war. Liepāja had become a city of ghosts. By 1943, as the tide of war began turning against Nazi Germany, a new order came from above. Erase the evidence. SS units returned to the dunes, not to kill, this time to hide what they had done. They poured chlorine over the decomposing bodies in the mass graves, hoping to accelerate decay. They burned records, destroyed documents, and searched desperately for the photographs they knew existed. But the images preserved by David Zivcon had already escaped their grasp. Memory had slipped through their fingers. Justice, when it finally came, was uneven, yet inevitable. Some of the architects of the Liepāja massacres died before the war ended. Franz Stahlecker, commander of Einsatzgruppe A, was killed by Soviet partisans in 1942. Others faced the courts they had once believed they would never see. Trials across Europe examined the killings in Latvia, tracing individual responsibility through orders, testimonies, and surviving photographs. Several of the perpetrators were executed. Others received long sentences. Not all were punished, but none would ever again walk the world unquestioned. And Liepāja itself changed. The dunes at Skede became quiet again. The wind returned, The sea continued to push its waves against the shore, but beneath the sand lay history. Raw, undisguised, impossible to bury. Visitors still describe an uneasy calm, as if the ground refuses to forget what humans tried so hard to hide. What happened in Liepāja was not a moment. It was a process, systematic, deliberate, perfected through cruelty. And yet, its legacy endures because survivors, investigators, and preserved evidence refuse to let silence rewrite the truth. The Baltic wind still speaks. We simply learned at last to listen.